Everybody to our rap sessions panel here at Vanderbilt University. I am Professor Claudine Taft with the African American and Diaspora Studies program here, and I want to welcome you to our panel, Run Toward Fear, Millennial Activism, and Social Justice in the Trump Era. What I'm going to do is actually put out some acknowledgments, some thank yous, and then I'm going to literally turn the mic over to Jasiri X. I definitely wanted to thank Latonro Hardin, our wonderful and esteemed administrative assistant, who has just been amazing in putting this together. Dr. Tracy Sharpley Whiting, my partner in crime in putting this panel together. Our co-sponsors, Sankofa, the Student Fellows Group for African American and Diaspora Studies, the Center for Latin American Studies, excuse me, come in, and the Office of the Dean of Students, thanking them for their co-sponsorship for this event. And finally, a wonderful thank you and acknowledgement to our esteemed faculty of African American and Diaspora Studies. So I'm going to turn the mic over to the professionals, to Jasiri, and he will introduce our panelists.
Peace, y'all. Yeah, my name is Jasiri X, and we I'm definitely honored and a privilege to be with you today. I'm a hip-hop artist originally from the south side of Chicago, based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm one of the founders of an organization in Pittsburgh called One Hood. I want to actually start with a piece. Is that cool with y'all? So now this is something new. This is like brand new. I've never performed this like in front of a crowd before. So if I mess up, y'all gonna we cool, right? We still gonna be cool. All right, it's called The Whitest House. Welcome to the whitest house. Slave souls haunt the halls when the light is out. They suck the blood of the poor and don't wipe their mouths. The last gas of a world that is dying out. Welcome to the whitest house, where every room is a tomb that they lie about, where you could put your filthy feet on the finest couch, and for the right amount, you could even buy it out. White power, white pride, white privilege. Whites maintain all their rights when whites pillage. White lies, white tears, and white feelings. White supremacy in the White House, the whitest building, ironically, in a place they call Chocolate City. Now all we see is the vanilla sky. That shit'll kill your vibe. They turn on the news for the realest lies. Damn, that shit is sadder than when children cry. 45 make you want to grab the 45. Nazis, what is this, 1945? Progressive whites so horrified. Black people, like we tried to tell y'all, you ignored the signs. Trudeau, I need a visa, please order mine. Or my Chicano peeps could sneak me through the borderline. That slogan on that red hat was so popular. Who knew it meant marching with slogans and waving swastikas? Welcome to the whitest house. Slave souls haunt the halls when the light is out. They suck the blood of the poor and don't wipe their mouth. The last gas of a world that is dying out. Welcome to the whitest house. Every room is a tomb that they lie about, where you could put your filthy feet on the finest couch, and for the right amount, you can even buy it out. So when the anthem plays, I'm going to sit next to Colin Kaepernick and Marshawn Lynch. Shout out to all my Africans. Descendants of those murdered by slave capture, and the ones that captured, and you build statues to champion. And wait, what religion were they practicing? Burning crosses in the Oval Office, while Omarosa and Ben Carson defend racists in the same place Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. White minds with black faces, a nation indoctrinated by hatred in need of an operation. Approval rating less than 1/3 of the population that took off their hoods so their identity's not mistaken. America's greatness, we not debating. Her history of murder and raping, we not erasing. But if white supremacy means American flag waving, then a true American can only be Caucasian. Welcome to the whitest house. What's up, y'all? Y'all all right? Y'all good? So, yeah, that was my little introduction. See this? Yusef got some stuff too, so no, you gotta still do a piece. So, in fact, I want to bring our panelists up. I want to start with Yusef Salaam, coming from New York City. Yusef Salaam is one of the exonerated members of the Central Park Five. And he has a book, you know what I'm saying, from the time that he was unjustly imprisoned. He's going to share his story with us. Grayson Martinez is coming from Dallas, Texas, but she's in Washington, D.C. She's a dreamer, and she works with United We Dream as their director of advocacy. And also coming from New York City, you know, a longtime activist and one of the co-founders of the Women's March on Washington, our sister Tamika Mallory. Can you give them all a Round of applause. Yeah. And I want to start, and what we're going to do, we're just going to have a quick conversation, and then we're going to open it up for questions. So hopefully you have questions, and hopefully we'll have a really good dialogue. So if you have something to say, we definitely want you to jump in. I do want to start with you, Tamika, because you were one of the organizers of the rally in front of the NFL headquarters in New York City in regards to Colin Kaepernick, former NFL quarterback, not getting the job, really being blacklisted because of his political stance in taking the knee. So I just want to play a little clip of an interview that you did in the midst or right after the rally that you did with BET.
Colin Kaepernick did not just take a knee on behalf of himself or because he wanted more money in his contract. He spoke on behalf of specific people and cases where we've seen militarized and excessive police force in our communities. And therefore, everyone of good moral conscience ought to be standing up for Colin Kaepernick. So this is not a gender issue. It is an all people's issue. It's a human rights issue, actually, because when you tie it back to what's happening in our communities, and you recognize that what he is standing up for, we all should be fighting.
So, of course, recently, 45, basically, at a rally in Alabama said that any athlete that kneels down, well, he said those son of a bitches should be fired. And then we kind of saw almost all the NFL teams kind of do some form of protest or kneeling. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on being that you all brought thousands of people in front of New York headquarters earlier. What was your thoughts on Trump and how he addressed these athletes and then the athletes' response?
Hello. Great. Hey, y'all. Thank you all so much for having us to be here with you today. Nothing that Donald Trump says ever shocks me at all. So, I'm actually happy that he said what I know a lot of people are thinking, including some of the NFL owners. And I think that, what makes Donald Trump so difficult for a lot of folks who want to continue the oppression that's happening in this country is that he's like unhinged, right? So he's not controlled. He says what other people are thinking that we for too long have been sort of hiding. These things have been hidden. We know that these are the conversations happening at people's dinner tables, in their personal conversations. It's even happening in corporate rooms, but they don't have those conversations out in public around us, the perceived slaves. And so I was happy that he said it. And what we saw happen after that, as far as I'm concerned, Jasiri, is a real disingenuous act. And I'll say because the owners and everyone wanted to stand for their players at that point, which was an economic move, because they knew that the Colin Kaepernick protests had already sort of stirred up and, got people getting a little upset, folks feeling away, a lot of people still holding on to their football love, but they were feeling it and they were watching. And once he made his statement, calling Kaepernick and other players who take that knee during the anthem, sons of bitches, it put a spotlight on the NFL. Let's see what y'all gonna do. And if they had not responded in the way in which they did, then there may have been a more deep and significant economic impact with people turning off the game, folks saying, okay, enough is enough, now I'm done. And so we saw all of a sudden people sort of coming to the aid of the players or standing with the players, which, as you said earlier, turned into sort of like an all lives matter piece. But what I will say is that it forced them, whether they like it or not, to have to stand on behalf of Black lives or kneel on behalf of Black lives. Because everybody knows the original reason why the protest started. Everyone knows exactly what happened. And whether they want to call it what it is or not, they understand that they were boxed into a place where they had no choice but to bring light to the issue of police brutality in America. And so therefore, for those of us who are social activists, we look at it and we're happy to see that every news station has to talk about Colin Kaepernick right now. They may not want to, but in the end, they said, well, Trump said something crazy. But the original reason why this began, and they have to get into that story, and what we hope is that the players are able to stick to the script Many of them have. When you watch the news and you see what the players are saying, they're talking about the protest and the need for addressing the issues of racism in our society. And so there's a lot to be said about it, but I think we as people who are on the outside need to understand that as the pressure is inside the league and on the courts, we also, on the field, we also have to keep that pressure going outside. And the last thing that I'll say is that if it was not such, if it was more authentic than when Colin Kaepernick took a knee, why did the owners not stand with him at that time? That's the question that you have to ask. When you get caught up in the euphoria of everyone locking arms and taking a knee right now, you got to step back and ask yourself, if this is how they really feel, where were they when he was out there, and why does the brother still not have a job?
Right. You know, I was going to ask you on that. Please continue holding the mic. Is it more significant or less significant that, you know, despite what we saw happen this Sunday, Colin Kaepernick is still unemployed?
So I tell people all the time, I'm not in the human resource business. You know, I like Colin Kaepernick a lot. The brothers has given money to an organization that I work with, Justice League NYC, that Carmen Perez, my colleague and sister, your sister, that I work with. He has given us grants and other organizations. He's been doing a lot with this.
Right, almost $1 million.
With $1 million, right, that he has sort of dedicated to organizations and efforts across the country, that people who are dealing with anti-racism work, with youth, and, you know, with knowing your rights, which is what his campaign is called. And so while I understand that and I respect Colin and I want to see him get a job and I will stand for him and continue to say his name, at the end of the day, the movement was happening before Colin Kaepernick decided to take a knee. He joined us, people who were already on the front line and on the battlefields for justice in this country. And so while, you know, I want to see him get a job, I think that what is more important and what he knows, he will tell you that this is not about me, that I took this sacrifice. This was a sacrificial move for me. I knew that I may have been blackballed, and what happened to me is coming to fruition, but it's almost necessary for him to continue in this position, because if he gets a job tomorrow, people may go back to sleep.
I was going to ask you, should we still boycott the NFL?
I think that if he gets a job tomorrow, it will be because we raised enough hell, but not because the soul of the NFL or any of these institutions has been changed. So if we stop just because one man got a job, or we feel like justice was served in his case, then we continue to lose with our children, because they will just find another way to repackage racism and repackage the idea that 70% of black men are good enough to make money for them, but not good enough for them to actually care about the communities that we come from or the communities that the players come from.
Wow, excellent. Can we get enough for Tamika, y'all? Excellent, excellent. So I want to move to you, Grace, and I want to play a clip of a very prophetic interview that you did. Yeah, excuse the still photo behind you. Don't turn around. This was actually before the election of President Trump, when he was kind of rolling out this immigration plan that you did this interview with MSNBC. So I just want to play a quick clip of it.
So joining me now is Grace Martinez, Advocacy Coordinator with United We Dream Action. Grace, so good to have you with me. And before you became an advocate, you were a dreamer yourself, young, undocumented immigrant here. You have a very personal stake in what Trump's immigration speech means tonight. And you just heard from one of Trump's advisors saying that Trump is really listening, and that order on the border is certainly very important about whether or not he's going to build a wall and the type of policy he really wants to institute. Do you understand the policy of Donald Trump, the candidate currently as it stands, or are you looking forward to this speech tonight? He's good.
You know, it's been clear that a word that defines Donald Trump is erratic. I think that for people like myself that are undocumented and have undocumented family members, it's been clear from day one that he wants to enact mass deportation. He wants to deport me and my mother, and that is crystal clear for all of us. But this in and out and softening or not, it's just erratic behavior, and it's concerning to our country.
So is there anything Trump can say to you in this speech tonight that would enhance how you feel about his candidacy?
Look, I'm grounded in my family and my 2 U.S. citizen sisters, and for someone to call my mother and my compatriots rapists and promise to take away the birthright citizenship of my sisters, it's really difficult to believe someone that says anything different. And I'm not a fool. Immigrants are not fools. Latinos, Americans are not fools, and we know that Donald Trump is trying to fool us. And so I think today it's going to be an underlining of his failed policy priorities and an availing of what he truly is someone that believes in mass deportation.
I kind of felt like you wanted to almost cuss after that second question, like, hell no, we ain't trusting Donald Trump. But and we saw, we've done this panel a few times right after the election of Donald Trump, and after the election of Donald Trump, we kind of saw ICE, unleashed, particularly on the undocumented community in a very a militaristic way. Then we saw, the repeal of DACA. What currently, because I know, you're undocumented, and you're with a lot of undocumented people in the community. What's the mood? What's the feeling? And what are steps we can take to save DACA, but also to make sure that all of those that are here have the ability to stay here and live and work and have the pursuit of happiness like everybody else. Did you turn off the mic, Tamika? No, I don't think so.
That's hello. Oh, yeah.
Hey.
Patience is key. I'm so glad to be with you all today. It kind of, when I hear the interview, I wish I could go back and tell my old self, like, you just need to be more forceful and call it what it is, that this man is a white supremacist, that he's trying to really enact mass deportation is just so soft of a term of what he's trying to do. He's trying to rid this country of black and brown people, either by deporting us, putting us in jail, or killing us. That is what is happening. And I wish that I would have used that opportunity, but now I am here and I'm saying it in every moment that I go, which is to say that this is who Donald Trump is. I am undocumented. I represent undocumented young people within United We Dream, and the mood, I would say, is it varies. And I'm not a spokesperson for 11 million people, but what I would say is that at the core, there are people that are saying that we are here to stay. This is our home. This is where we have built our lives. This is where we have found each other. We've found strength, and we're not going anywhere. And so, I think that for those of you that know, DACA is Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. It protects about 1 million undocumented young people like myself. It is a victory of young people coming out, knowing their own power and saying, President Obama, stop deporting us, stop deporting our people, and you must do something to protect us. And we won. We made the President of the United States do something he did not want to do. And now we're in this, the Trump era, and he has decided to steal our victory away. Although what he did not count on is that we would still, the next day, the next minute, say that we are still undocumented, that we are still unafraid, and that we're not going to go back into the shadows. But one context that I want to give to people, and that has helped me sort of put everything into perspective, is to know that just a couple of weeks before the end of DACA, we saw Charlottesville. We saw this president, obviously, because he's a racist, not move forward and call Charlottesville for what it is, which is a white supremacist Nazi rally. And what happened with DACA and what is happening with undocumented people is not disconnected. This is just part of a white supremacy agenda of wanting to put young people of color into jail, deport us, or kill us. And so I think that for me in the next couple of days, when I think about the fight to defend undocumented people, right now we're in a legislative fight trying to win the DREAM Act, which would protect at least some of us, a small part of us. But really, it is a fight for our democracy. It's a fight for ensuring this is the tip of the spear for us. That if we're not able to defend this, if we're not able to win a policy win in this moment, that means that he's winning faster than we thought he could. And it means that like the fact that he's running at a faster speed and he has taken over every institution of democracy in this country, the Congress, the courts, all the state and local law enforcement, they have taken over. And that, I think for me at least, it's helpful to know. It's helpful to know what your opponent and what your enemy is trying to do and where they're trying to go, and how you can move in relation to that. And so when I think about this moment, and I think about the young people that I speak to every day, some of them that have, like we've heard reports of that they've attempted to take their lives because they just feel so hopeless. Young people that are not sort of like maybe as privileged as all of us in this room, where like they're responsible for providing for all of their families. They are responsible from day in, day out, being the rod of support for their families. Part of the way that we win and that we move forward is that we all own a little bit of this fight, and that we not grow accustomed to the noise of the chaos and how erratic Donald Trump is. And if I am sort of like, I'm going to own the title that Jasiri has given me, which is like a little bit of a prophet, to say that like I know that there's going to be a day after Donald Trump. And I know that that day will be brought on faster if young people, the rabble-rousers, the people that don't give a fuck about rules, if we get our shit together and we do something about it. That is the only way that we have seen anything change in this country. And so, I'm here to ruffle some of your feathers because we need you, because the fight is really hard, and because this man is trying to take our democracy away and put young, poor people of color in detention, deport us, or kill us.
Powerful. Is there anything specifically, like, those of us that, have that are documented, have U.S. citizenship, but, are in solidarity and support the undocumented community and their right to be here. This is their land. In many cases, it's indigenous people of this land. What can we do to help push this thing forward?
I think there's three things. One, you need to own this fight like it's like they're coming right after you. Because the reality is that we know that white supremacists function systematically. They don't go for all of it all at once. They go piece by piece by piece. And they're starting with us. They're starting with undocumented people, but they're going to go after all of us eventually. And so the understanding that, I think, is number one, and knowing that like you have a role to stop that, which means that it means getting into community with other young people, learning about community organizing. It means about knowing about your rights, and when you are demanded, what is demanded upon you to speak up. That is number one. The second thing is that there are some things that we could do at the local level, which is figure out how you can get connected to who decides how people are charged criminally at the state and local level. Who are your district attorney people? Making sure that you're showing up to the ballot boxes in those elections, because those count. Those count. Those ensure that like people those are the people that figure out whether or not people are deported or not. And then the third thing I will say is that we're in a legislative fight. My job as an advocacy director right now is to figure out how we can like miraculously steal a win under a Trump administration and have protection for immigrant young people. And the thing that moves me into action is to know that the Department of Homeland Security is the largest police force in the country. It has the most money. It is the least restricted. No one looks over it, and those are the people responsible for deporting us. But those are also the people that have my information. That I gave my information to this government. And I need you to like call your Senator Corker and Alexander. They are top targets, and we need them to co-sponsor a DREAM Act that does not put the rest of the 11 million people into more danger, and that does not give more money to this DHS agency, these policemen that are not accountable to anyone, any more money and any more ability. So get active, know that this is your fight, organize, participate electorally, and call your senators.
I just wanted to say that there's a lot of black folks who think that this is not our issue, and we need to be really careful of that. Two things. One, we've already experienced our own DACA, which is, and we continue to experience it, and that is mass incarceration. You mentioned it, but just to make sure people understand exactly what it feels like for someone in your home, your own family member, our black brothers and sisters, to be ripped away from us, mom, dad, and others that we all know, those stories, is the same exact thing. And then the other part is that I don't know why black folks don't know that there are black people who are undocumented immigrants, because there are.
Asians,
Exactly.
right. There's white people who are under DACA, really.
There are people who look like us who are undocumented, and we may not see it that way, but they are. And so this fight is our fight. It's not a separate issue. It's one and the same. And I think that the thing that you said that resonates with me the most is that it's you today and then us tomorrow, and it really just kind of flips back and forth, because the system, it doesn't change. They're just constantly looking for ways to be able to uphold white people and white superiority in this country. And if you don't recognize that, you better get with it real quick.
Thank you both. And I want to move to you, Yusef. But before I do, I just wanted to put the Central Park 5 in context, and I want to show the trailer of the documentary that Ken Burns did. They really kind of brought the injustice to a national prominence for this generation. It came out, I think, in around 2010, and it actually led to you all actually receiving some type of financial compensation, rightfully so, from New York City for your unjust incarceration. So if you have not seen the Ken Burns documentary, Central Park 5, I would ask you to do so, but this is the trailer.
I want us to remember what happened that day and be horrified by ourselves. New York in the late 1980s was a completely schizophrenic, divided city. New York now, the capital of racial violence. I would have shot them all again and again. Criminality, gang wars, drug wars. We were supposed to be afraid. It would have been irrational not to be afraid. Last night, a woman jogger was found unconscious and partially clothed in Central Park, and she was beaten and sexually assaulted. A woman jogging in Central Park. Central Park was holy. It was the crime of the century. 5 youths were arrested at 96th Street, all between 14 and 15 years of age. They got them! You can only imagine the pressure to have this crime solved and solved quickly. Once we was all together, then we started to put us in different rooms, separate. What did you do? Who were you? Who did you come with? The tone was very scary. I felt like they might take us to the back of the precinct and kill us. Never go home until you give up the story. I told my son go to the park at night. I feel good. I'm telling the guy, I don't know what you're talking about. They get a little angry. He's like, you did it, didn't you? You didn't start getting for over 24 hours. That's a most fresh dirt.
These young men, it was almost unquestioned. The police who told the story, they created the story.
They seized on the fears of the people. Wildly, the bestial characterization of the black man. There's no DNA match whatsoever to any of these boys.
I was going nuts. No blood on the kids. Nobody could identify them, but if they confessed, and that was that.
A lot of people didn't do their jobs. Reporters, police, prosecutors, defense lawyers. This was institutional protection. We falsely convicted them, and we walked away from our crime. The open silence that says none of us is safe.
Can you give us just your personal experience? I know seeing that kind of bring those feelings back. But can you just share a little bit of your story about, and kind of walk us through, how you go from being, a happy-go-lucky teenager to, being, really cast in a role of, one of the greatest villains of all time, to where you had, Donald Trump put an ad out in the New York Times calling for the death penalty to be brought back for y'all to be killed, and then to know you didn't do it and go through what you did and then later on be exonerated. Can you just walk us through that briefly?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me here. It's definitely an honor and a pleasure for me to be here and to share this story with you. if ever there was someone who was born naive, it was Yusef Salaam. And I say that because as I grew up, my mother would tell me, constantly, she would tell me, I was born in the Jim Crow South. And I'm looking at my mom like, what are you talking about, Ma? Like, it's cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, we in New York. We here, And my mother would say, if the police come, let them break the door down. Let them break your arm. Essentially, as I got older in my understanding of what my mother was trying to teach me, she was almost saying that, sometimes there comes a time where you might have to sacrifice yourself for the greater good. Not that we strap a bomb on our backs or anything like that and blow things up, but there has to be evidence. We were living in a day and age where there were no cameras to expose the stuff that we see today. And the same stuff that was going on today was going on yesterday, and last week, and last month, and last year. And one of the most unfortunate things I would say that I did was I said to myself, so I heard the cops were looking for me. I'm going to go looking for the cops. My mom told me not to talk to them, but I didn't do anything. So I never knew about Miranda. I never knew about any of that stuff. I found this out after the fact. That even with the Miranda card, it's in order for your protection, but they don't present it to you that way. And so the first thing that you see is you have the right to remain silent. And then it says, if you give up that right, anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. And so here I am, I'm saying to myself, well, I'm going to just go to the cops and I'm going to tell them what I saw, because I saw, people harassing folks and running around and, we didn't call it wilding back then, but that's the term that they created as a part of this thing that they wanted people to be afraid of. And I go to the cops, and I came home 7 years later. When they went after us, they should have said that we're going after you because of the color of your skin. Because that's really what we were guilty of. We were guilty of being black and brown and thinking that we were free. And I say that because we're free to the degree that we refuse to be slaves. That's what they tried to turn me into when they put me in the prison. Right in the 13th Amendment, this film that Ava DuVernay just released not too long ago, it clearly states that they have the right to turn you into a slave for the punishment of a crime. But in the context of understanding what that means, I had no clue. And while they threw me in the belly of the beast, I refused. I had been refusing. I was like that photo that people was putting out on Instagram and Twitter, Tumblr, and Snapchat, and Facebook, and all other social media things where you see the frog in the pelican's mouth, but the frog has his hands around the pelican's throat, even though the pelican is eating him. And the caption says, never give up. And I never forget the day that they sentenced me. I was full of hope and options of what I was going to do, because I just knew that I was going to go free. I mean, if you see some of the footage back then, I was walking in the courthouse, I had a flat top, my shades on, and I was almost bopping into the courtroom. I just knew I was going to go free. And I heard so many echoes of guilty, I lost count. And unlike other folks, we didn't get the opportunity to, hug our loved ones. We didn't get the opportunity to hug our loved ones. We didn't get the opportunity to have a going away party. They told us to stand up, put your hands behind your back, and they let us off into the back room where we cried we cried one of those Sankofa cries. It was painful. And some months went by, and we were told that we were going to be sentenced. And of course, they were doing all of these polls, you know, because Donald Trump, he had already threw his hat in the ring back then. I mean, he took out the full-page ad, paying $85,000 for ad space to run in New York City newspapers calling for the reinstatement of the death penalty, specifically for the Central Park Five. That's a lot of money now. That was an astronomical amount then. But he did that. But while I was waiting for the sentence, there was these polls, you know, and in the polls there was like, well, you know, we went after them as adults, and so we're gonna sentence them as adults. And so the polls were saying, well, you know, for this charge and this charge and this charge, you know, they're facing 6 2/3 to 20 years. And we didn't do this. We didn't do the crime. That's, you know, it's one thing, like you when you go to prison, you know, not that I ever advise any of you to go. But when you go to prison, there's folks that you will meet that they know they were there because they did the crime. Be like, I did that. I knew I was going to get caught. When they, you know, it is what it is. They do the time. But then there's folks like me who didn't do this at all. And so while I was waiting, I was told that I should throw myself on the mercy of the court. And I had been reading, you know, the autobiography of Malcolm X and about folks like Denmark Vesey and just folks who it wasn't about to lay down and die. Here it was, the spike wheels of justice was coming down the hill that I was on to mow us over. And on that day, that fateful day, in now 1990, they said, do you have anything to say before we sentence you? And I raised my hand. And against the advice of other folks who were telling us to throw ourselves on the mercy of the court, these are the words that came out. I'm not going to sit here at your table and watch you eat and call myself dinner. Sitting here at your table doesn't make me dinner, just like being here in America doesn't make me an American. Let us begin. Stress is the anger that is built up inside. Rage is the anger that is no longer built. Taking on a sucker that soon you have killed. American free will doesn't mean you can kill. And take another person's life, you live your life trife. I'm a skill builder, so on skills I do build. Creator giving knowledge to this wise black man, soon to enhance my words across the land. I'm a smooth type of fellow, cool, calm, and mellow. I'm kind of laid back, but now I'm speaking so that you know. Got used and abused and even was put on the news without clues. They gave clues, selling out like fools. Now check this. Who did what and who did who in? Put in a situation that you don't know what to do in. Some brothers go wildin'. We're not down with them. Who would have thought we had to lock in? I stand accused. Checking the scene from how the situation was. Instead of getting facts, the media made you blurred. Now the people don't know. All they see is the media. They never hear the blame because they're constantly deceiving us. And then I looked at the DA. And I said, the DA is dead wrong. This is her master plan. This case is not a case, it's just a crafted sham. Yo, instead of trying to get your name made, it's reconstructing the crime that really pays. Islam, la ilaha illallah, being supreme over Satan, but no man is Allah. Yes, I'm a science dropper on the righteous path, so how the hell could I take a rapist path? Think about that and then think about this. All my friends, it was me they dissed, they're dismissed. I don't really need any friends like that, because when I really needed you, where were you at? I'm not dissing them all, but the some that I called, they went and dissed me. Like I was an inch small, like a rat, a mouse, not even a man, wrongly accused. Like the knives in my hand. How does it look? Me clocked, now I'm shook. But like Matlock, soon the accused gets off the hook. It's real when she remembers and says, damn, the cops did you in, I stand accused. You people stop. This racial disperse, say, yo, you seen that kid Benson? He's in the Hearst. And so we take it to the Bensonhurst fields, Wesker bulletproof vests. We had no kinds of shields. How does it look? They killed the black man being black. It's time we take a stand. In our situation, they saw our faces clear, but not mine. Not because of fear. It's because the black race was disgraced, and for the Muslim, they must have felt shame. But I'm not to blame with the words you bought. The media took the words to paper, the ones the cops distorted. I told the cops truth like this, and then boom, they were smacking my man Corey Wise in the next room. Now I know why the rosters can't stand the Babylon. They never helped, they just babble on. I used to think the people and cops were cool, but who protects us from you? I stand accused. You know, my education was immediate. You know what I'm saying? I mean, 15 years old, I had to figure it out just like that. But the best part was that my mother had been educating me all along. She had been telling me about this Jim Crow South that she grew up in. She had been telling me about the KKK, the fact that they would have, you know, bullhorn announcements and saying, hey, the KKK is going to be on the warpath tonight. Make sure you get home early. How she had to be in a car with her family members and her mother and father and maybe grandmother at the time, and they would have to turn the lights off and ride down a road that you can't see nothing. That whole can't see sun up from can't, I mean, what's the terminology? Working from can't see sun up to can't see sun down. You in the blackest of the black, the darkest of night, and you got to try to get home. And this was what happened. This is what happened to us, you know? And it's crazy because now, you know, I always talk about this whole reality of, well, at least it's over. At least we got through it. You know, but when I went to sleep, when Donald Trump was running against Hillary, I mean, it was already a nightmare to be in. But I woke up, I mean, I went to sleep thinking about the possibility of what it was going to be for me to be in this American dream. And in spite of it all, I was going to still do what I needed to do. And when I tell you I woke up in the American nightmare, but here we are.
Here we are.
Here we are.
I did have one more question for you, and then I want to have one more question for the panel as a whole, and then we're going to open it up to you guys for questions. You know, you mentioned, you know, as Trump was running, he reiterated the fact that he believed you all to be still guilty, even though you were exonerated by the New York court system to the point where they removed your names out of any type of registry. Yes. He still, you know, came out and said he believed you all to still be guilty, thrusting you kind of back in the limelight. One, you know, how did you feel at that point, and did you feel danger, or did you feel threatened? You know, during your time in prison, you received a lot of hate letters and hate mail. A lot of people calling for your death. Now here's, you know, a person that's really speaking directly to a lot of these white nationalists and white supremacists saying, I believe these men to still be guilty. Did you ever feel a threat by that?
Man, I tell you, I feel threatened every day, but I'm not afraid. Like, I'm in this room, and I've already figured out if it go down, what room, what door I'm going out, what window I'm going to go out.
I'm following you, brother.
Man, they might have a space in the ceiling that I'm going to get through. You see what I'm saying? Because the reality is that it's a sad thing to walk around afraid. You can't live your life like that. You know, Dr. Maya Angelou, I feel like she was directly talking to me when she was talking about being angry and bitter. You know, and she said, you must be angry. I mean, you should be angry. She said, you should be angry. You must not be bitter. Bitterness is a cancer that eats upon a host. It doesn't do anything to the object of its displeasure. And so as she began to speak more, she said, you should use that anger. You should write it. You should vote it. You should march it. You should dance it. You should talk it. Never stop talking it. And I feel like the purpose, you know, there's a certain grace and happiness that you get from realizing that you're living your life on purpose. That what you went through wasn't about you, but it was for everyone else. It was for, like they always talk about you don't get too much more than you can bear.
Yes.
And I went through that, and it was almost biblical. It was almost Quranic. It was like, you know, they said, build the fire. And they built it. And they said, throw them in. And they threw us in. But they forgot the owner of the heat.
Yes.
They forgot.
Come on, brother.
They forgot.
Yeah.
Like, I was in there. I got a college degree in prison. You know what I'm saying? I got a college degree in prison. I came home from prison, and I was awarded in 2014 an honorary doctorate degree. And just before President Barack Obama left office, you know, I was given a Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award.
Wow.
Just before he left office. And so, but when I look at all of that, when I look at this thing that could have very well debilitated me, like I have PTSD. That's real. I mean, it is what it is. My daughters, I tell them all the time, do not sneak up on me. You know, and they keep playing. But every once in a while, I realize it's my daughters, right? So as I'm getting up, oh yeah, I'm not in the pen.
Right.
You know, but that is a real thing.
Yes.
This thing that we have, and it's crazy because, you know, I'm thinking about the conversation that we had on the way here, and it just dawned on me something that my mother said. She said it's a wonder that any one of us are still sane.
Yes.
I mean, when you've been dealing with the hells of that we've been dealing with forever, and when I say forever, I'm talking about we woke up in hell.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
We woke up without a nationality. We woke up without a connection to who we are and where we came from and the reality of what we are about. And we're just building our way back to that, brick by brick.
Absolutely.
And figuring it out. It's a wonder that any one of us are seeing.
Man, thank you.
Yeah, man.
Thank you. And one thing you didn't mention, you know, you mentioned Ava DuVernay, but Ava DuVernay is actually doing the miniseries on the Central Park 5. So that'll be coming to Netflix, I believe, in 2019.
Yes, indeed.
She's doing a miniseries that you'll be involved in. So I wouldn't wait. I still will watch the documentary just to prepare you for what our sister Ava DuVernay is going to do. So I wanted one last question, because you mentioned Charlottesville. It literally seems like it was maybe a year ago. I mean, so much has happened since Charlottesville. It feels like it was so far away. You know, a young woman's life was lost. Heather Heyer's life was lost there. And, you know, it was kind of this battle. It became this battle around Confederate statues and the removal of Confederate statues. We're in the South. We're in Tennessee, where they've had protests here. I guess currently at the state capitol, there's a bust of Nathan Forrest, who was one of the early founders and leaders of the Ku Klux Klan. It's at the state capitol right now. And I know there's been movements. You know, there's a very racist statue in Pittsburgh that we've been organizing to get rid of as well. So the first question is kind of like, you know, that movement, and it's relevant, but it also seems like everything that we've been doing activism-wise is a reaction to something Trump says or does. Is that harming kind of our movements and activism, or are there things that we can do to be proactive where it's not, you know, Muslim ban, we show up at the airport, you know, he does this over here, we do this. Are we kind of like chasing the dog chasing his tail when it comes to Trump? Or is it necessary to have these, you know, very real rallies and protests and shows to kind of challenge white supremacy wherever it is? And that's a question for everybody, and then I'll open it up for the audience.
I think the answer is yes, we are doing a dog chase, and yet we must. right? So it's not one or the other, it's both and. We have to ensure that wherever injustice pops up its dirty head, that we're there and we're in it and we're speaking up. You know, I often liken it to the game that you play when you go to the carnival and the little heads pop up and you're like bopping them down. You got to bop them all down and eventually we'll win. You know, especially if you're really your eyes on the prize. I think that right now what we see is, unfortunately, and there may be people in this room who voted for Donald Trump, but the truth is what it is, that he is the head white supremacist in charge, right? Like, that's just what it is. And so fighting him and speaking out against him in general at all costs is really still being a very active and proactive participant in the resistance. And I say that because if you understand what white supremacy is, and also this whole idea of race, because, you know, people have tried to make us think of race as sort of like this construct, like, you know, it's color. It's really not about that. It's about who is going to be in a supreme position and who will be at the bottom. So if you understand that and you understand how white supremacy shows up, if you're engaged in the Muslim ban issue, or if you're a person fighting with the DACA folks, or if you're standing up, you know, with the Black Lives Matter movement, you're an active participant. You are a part of a proactive strategy, because all of those things matter. We cannot be silent on any of these issues. I do think, however, that if we're not actively engaged in what that means in terms of policy and our political power, then that's where the breakdown comes in. It's good for us to have social change agents who are on the ground, protesting, mobilizing, showing up, being outside, you know, at whatever rally or what have you. But if you go to sleep and don't vote on election day, that's problematic, because the only thing that matters is that while we're protesting, we're also holding people accountable for having power and access and influence in our communities. So I don't care who, I don't care if it's Nick Cannon, Puffy, whoever, he's Diddy now, right? So Diddy, he's Puffy to us. But I don't care who tells you that we shouldn't vote. That, to me, is a flawed process. It's a flawed idea. Because you can't say you're upset about what's happening in your communities and then allow the same people to be in charge and hold the access and keys to how your children go to school, with school board elections, to city council members, to your state senator. And one of the things that I learned from President Obama, and it was really fascinating, it was like Obama, every time he came up with something and we were like, yeah, we're going to background checks. Everybody agreed on background checks. Like, the whole country was like, you know what? We still want to have access to our guns. One of the greatest myths about the whole anti-violence movement is that we don't want people to have guns. That is not, in fact, at all what the anti-violence movement is about. We just want to make sure that guns that we don't manufacture don't end up in our communities in the hands of Ray Ray, who also doesn't have food, and next thing you know, he ends up killing somebody in our community. We want to ensure that there are protections for that. And background checks was one of those things. Everybody said, you know what, we should know whether a person is mentally stable, responsible enough to have a gun. And if they are a person who, once they get a gun, it could be a trafficking situation. We want to know who you are. You bought the gun. Your name needs to be on it. You need to be registered. We need to know who you are. And then when he would get real close to getting it done, there were people, because we didn't control, as you said, the branches of government within our Senate, within the House, we didn't control it. And they would block it every time. So while some people say Obama didn't do anything, it's not so much that he didn't try to do some things. He could have done more, but he tried to do some things and he couldn't get it done because these people had an agenda and they were very specific about it. In the midterm elections in 2014, they made sure, in 2010, no, 2012. That's when it was. 2012. They made sure, okay, y'all got a black president. He's this crazy liberal guy. But we're going to go in and make sure that we flip our state houses so that we can maintain statewide control. Right? We all understand the model. So here we are walking around mad about everything. Rah, 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 mad. Black Lives Matter. I got my afro, my Black Lives Matter t-shirt on and all of that. And then when it comes time for us to vote for our state senator or our congressional member, we're not present. The two things don't go together. It's like the oxymoron. It doesn't mix. It's oil and vinegar. It doesn't work. Because the person who is in a position of power in your community that's the person you got to hold accountable with your issues. You have to send them to the State House and say, if you go in there and vote to pass some crazy health care bill that is going to impact communities of color, mainly people who look like me, poor people, in a negative way, I'm going to vote your ass out. If you don't exercise that power, then what do you have? As young people, as black people, as brown people, as poor people, we may not have the financial resources to buy elected officials the way others do. But what we do have that they care about is votes. They don't care about your rally. And I am the rally lady. You ask me how to put a rally together, I know all the elements. So I'm not telling you not to rally. But I understand that that is purely symbolic. It's symbolic. It lets people know there's an issue. They like to say it's like turning the lights on, the roaches start running everywhere. You can see what's going on, right? But that is purely symbolic if we're not using our well, that's a whole different panel, our economic power, because black folks particularly have $1.3 trillion in spending power. And if we decided not to spend that today, and y'all are the ones who have the money, because just so you know, the least amount of money, that's where the most is being spent. The people who have the real wealth are not spending the most money. It's us, the poor people, that are spending the most money. But that's another panel. But now there's 2018 coming up. So we done been mad for the last however many years. We were mad at Obama. We mad at Trump. We mad as hell at Trump. We mad as hell, right? We all mad. How are we going to turn that thing around and ensure that we start showing people that we're not just angry, but we're also strategic, and we have a political mind, that we're going to go in there and take back some of these seats and hold some people accountable for our success and our happiness in this damn country.
All right now. Thank you. I just, snap it up for her. I want to give you the last word before we open up for questions, Grace. So just any organizing strategy students here at Vanderbilt can take to, improve maybe their situation either in, on campus or, in the communities where they live.
Yeah. So it just connected to what you were just saying. I think that the rise of Donald Trump and the light of that is now shown on like white supremacy is actually a reaction to us and our power. I think that it reminds me of, I went to school at Texas A&M. It's a super white, super conservative school in Texas. Military, yeah. And, I was undocumented. I was so afraid. I didn't know what I was doing. But I was just trying to pretend that I was white as long as possible and like just go to school and do what I needed to do. And it wasn't until it was this one guy that was part of my friend circle. He got he was walking out of class in the middle of the night at the library, sorry, not class. And this guy came up to him and he put a black plastic bag in front of on top of his head, and he turned him around and he said, "Go back to Mexico, wetback." And it wasn't until my friend came back and he told me that story, and I just got so mad and so angry that I was wearing my T-shirt of A&M, going to the football games, wanting to pretend that I belong, that I was complicit in being part of that. And so from there, I didn't hear anything. It was all sort of hush hush in the middle of the night. And after that, we found other undocumented young people on our campus, and we decided to organize, and we decided to do something about it. We had meetings, and we had, we found a way to love ourselves, to really be able to embody what leadership is, which is enabling other people to find purpose in the face of uncertainty. You don't know where you're trying to go. You don't know what the next move is going to be, but you are enabling and creating spaces for other people to talk about it, to love themselves, and to figure out a way of action. And we did that. And after that, you should have seen the onslaught of like the Texas Republican college people, everybody sort of reacting and wanting to kick us out of classrooms. Like you had like people inviting like super racist speakers on campus, and it was a reaction to our organizing. And I think that I think that the question is now like, they have responded to our power, our economic power, our political power, our people power. Like the fact that there are like black and young, poor, undocumented people in Vanderbilt, in all of these like places of higher learning, like they know what's coming. And so they've made a move. And it's been really clear, like we're going to like stick you in jail, we're going to deport you, or we're going to kill you, but we're going to get rid of you. And the question is now, like, what is our next move? What are we going to do in response to their last move? And I think for me, the answer has to be, like, you have to learn to love yourself and know that none of us deserve to live a life of fear and of, like, thinking what's going to happen to us in the middle of the night. You have to know that you are a leader and that you're supposed to enable other people to take action. And you have to be able to be engaged and take concrete action. Life cannot... Immigrant young people have built our power because at the same time that we were like sitting in on Obama's like offices as he was running for re-election, we also had like people in Washington, D.C. pulling the strings and telling what our demands were right in front of the members of Congress. And so I will say that like this is our moment. It is our move. This is a game of chess. And I think that for us and for you all, there is an urgency to get it together. There's an urgency for you to organize and to know that life is not, we can't just coast and pretend we're white for the next 3 years. We have to do something about it.
Ooh. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So, do we have any questions for the panelists? Anybody? Oh, over here. Oh, I guess I'm gonna be Oprah today. I'm gonna come up here and hand you the microphone since we're recording and want to make sure we get everything on the record. Yes, sir.
How you doing, Jasiri? Nice to see you again. First of all, wonderful panel. I always learn a lot when I come to these events. First and foremost, I want to give Professor Candy Taff some love for putting this together. I put panels like this together, and it takes a lot of time and energy to get everybody together, and these are very, very important forums for us to have. So many things came to mind as you guys were talking, but I'm going to ask kind of two questions. The first is about kind of white rage. I mean, Carol Anderson in her book, if you guys have not read Carol Anderson's book, you need to pick that up today. And she talks about white rage. And what's important about white rage is that white rage is something that is not new. That oftentimes what we end up with in these moments is another historical kind of cycle of a backlash of white rage when there's a perception. It doesn't even have to deal with any kind of economical or historical, economic or material reality, but the perception that somehow black or brown people are getting ahead, there's usually a backlash of white rage, right? So even though it seemed like we were making some kind of progress, at least symbolically, with Barack Obama winning 2 terms, right? And I say at least symbolically, right? If we understood how the patterns of white rage work, we should have known that a Donald Trump-esque moment was coming, right? So I guess, the question that in that first part question is, we're in this moment where obviously we see the white supremacists at the door. And so there's a lot of activity around that. The question that I have in that regard, and I want to put the panel, is what happens when that moment passes, right? When we, when we get to another Barack Obama-esque moment, right? And everybody then lets their guard back down and goes back to this kind of, this kind of notion that we're moving forward ahead. How do we keep that momentum, like at this particular moment? How do we sustain that in those moments, right? Where, Tamika, where we're talking about organizing and voting and gaining power. How do we keep that momentum going, not just when we have a white supremacist in the White House, but when we have moments where it seems like we're making progress? How do we sustain that? And the second part of the question has to do with solidarity among black and brown folks. Besides, I've been in Miami for the last 4 years, and what I can tell you is a lot of brown folks down there think that they're white and they conduct themselves like they're white. Right? So we talk about white supremacy within the context of white people traditionally, but white supremacy, right, is a portable discourse that a lot of brown folks, right, soon as they get to that point where they have access, they access that. And what I found when I was in Miami was that it wasn't the traditionally quote-unquote white folks that I had, the most tension with. It was a lot of the brown folks, particularly Cuban Americans, who went out of their way to make sure they distinguished themselves from me and went out of their way oftentimes to target people that look like me. So when we start talking about these issues of solidarity, and we like to talk about black and brown solidarity and unity, what I also want us to kind of put into that conversation is also to our brown brothers and sisters, right? We calling for solidarity, but also understand that there needs to be a conversation about what that white supremacy looks like in those brown circles as well. Thank you.
Wow, two great questions. I think, because the white rage question, I think, is something, Tamika, I would like you to address, because you talked about you had your own experiences, and I mean, you've been targeted by the NRA personally, in a very, to me, aggressive, negative way. Can you just kind of talk about that?
You saw that?
Oh yeah. and then to the second point, kind of like, how do we maintain, if Donald Trump is impeached tomorrow, are we all having a party and then going to go back to sleep? Like, how do we maintain this sense of urgency when there's not kind of a white supremacist in chief kind of constantly coming with an attack?
Well, so many powerful things you said, brother, and I just want you to know that if I had the answer to all those things, I probably could get a Nobel Peace Prize right now. So I'm working at that. And I also think it's something to be said about the fact that white supremacy is being upheld even by dark-skinned folks. So we need to say that, because it's true.
Talking about Ray Lewis?
Well, I didn't take a knee in protest.
He took
I
two
was
knees.
praying, two
He
knees.
was praying.
Jesus. They need to just slap some white face on him anyway. So I think that the reason why we're in the situation we're in is because too many people went to sleep under President Obama. And we didn't. The activists didn't go to sleep. We were probably more active because more people died. If you go through the list, the names of all those that we like to call Eric Garner, Sandra Bland, Trayvon Martin, Walter Scott, Terrence Crutcher, I mean, the list goes on and on. That happened under Obama's presidency. The backlash was happening while he was president. So it's not like this is something new. I think that how we're going to maintain is going to be a personal question. Like, right? People are going to have to personally have to understand, what did we really gain from having the black president, other than something that was purely symbolic, as you said, something that looked really good. And if we can't really point to what we gained, then we actually need to be even more active in those symbolic moments, because that's when we're actually going to be able to talk to somebody and shift culture. And to the point about Trump, like, and I hate to say this because I know people don't really like it, but I'm almost glad that Trump is the president right now. Because if Hillary Clinton was president, which 94% of black women, and I'm one of us, voted for her, not because we liked her, we don't like some of the stuff about Hillary, we don't like some of the stuff about her husband. We understand that she has been a part of holding up white supremacy and oppression over people of color, folks in other countries that are our brothers and sisters. We know what she's done. But we voted on behalf of society, black women, because that's what we always do. We lead and we sacrifice in those moments, and that's what we did. But if she was president, The conversations that I've been a part of on college campuses where you can actually use terms like white supremacy and talk about racism and just be blatant about all this stuff, that would not be happening because the status quo would still be in charge, and therefore we would not be able to people's eyes wouldn't be open. I got white women beating my door down. Can you please come to my family picnic and tell us about what's wrong with us? You know, and I've had to have these conversations where white women will say to me, well, you know, I just don't know how to talk about it. You know, I know my mother voted for Donald Trump, and I don't know how to talk about it. And I say to them all the time, when my son gets ready to walk out the door, I almost cried when you talked about what the conversation was with your mother. Because I basically stripped my son of all his morality when he's going out the door. Put your hands up. Don't say this. Please don't do that. Mama needs you to come home. If he tells you to get down on your knees, get down. Say, yes, sir. Do this, that, and the third. Just don't be a man. Please don't be a man. That's the conversation I have with him. And you mean to tell me you can't talk to your mama about who she was going to vote for? Damn. And they look at me and they go, oh, that's it. You know, I got to have courageous conversations. So to your point, I don't have the exact answer, but what I will say is that to hell with when the next moment comes. We're in it right now.
Yes.
We have the energy. Sometimes, I don't know sports analogies, but I know there's something about when that energy is out there. That momentum,
yes.
Exactly. And we got the momentum. We got the racists in chief. And if you get rid of Trump right now, unless they put his whole administration out for all of the unethical, illegal shit that they've done from the top to the bottom, if they stay, Mike Pence becomes your next president, and he is worse than Donald Trump and more strategic in terms of all of the things that they want to do. So we got the momentum. This is our moment. If we don't take this moment, because when I saw Michael Jordan had something to say the other day, I said, oh, it's an what you call an apocalypse? It's the shit it's about to go down when he had to say something. If the players are taking a knee, guys that came from the hood that got $1 million, they don't want to be in this fight. But they don't have no choice because you can't call my mama a bitch.
Right. LeBron came with you bum.
What LeBron said, and I don't take it back.
Yes.
This is our moment.
Excellent, excellent. Yes. No, okay.
I just want to chime in a bit too, please. Man, because you know, I learned a term when I came home from prison. I believe it's I want to say it's Nigerian, but it might not be. But the term was umuntu, ungumuntu, ungabantu, and what it means is a person is a person because they are people. And as we were discussing this and trying to figure out, well, what the crux of that doesn't really get to a meaning, you know? And one of the brothers in the class stood up and said, well, what it means to me is I be me, you be you. You be me, I be you. We be we. So we got to love our people that much. You know what I'm saying? We got to love our people that much because there's going to come a time well, we're going to have to realize that we're going to have to get up from the table. And it's just like that. And the scary part, which we must be prepared for, is even in an economic boycott, that is an act of war. That is not an act of maybe they're going to throw a spitball at me through a straw. Right. No, this is an act of straight up war. And so the thing about what happened during the Obama administration, it reminded me of, I can't get this whole quote correct, but it reminded me of when I believe Martin Luther King was invited to the White House. And a white supremacist said, because he stepped foot in the White House, we're going to have to kill us like, let's say, 100 more people or something like that from these folks. And it's the reality that as we wake up, as we stay woke, the reason why some of these killings happen is to deter us from fully waking up. Because even though we playing chess, because we there now, there's a famous artist that as you back up from the board, you realize that even on the chessboard, you still on a board. We still playing in this particular thing. And if we want to play in it, then we have to understand how to play in it. But we got to realize too that we are so powerful. If we only but knew, we could just walk away from the table, do something else. They'd be lost without us. I mean, listen, they'd be lost without us. So I just wanted to say that piece there.
No, thank you. Thank you. I did want you, Grace, to talk about, because this solidarity is a question that has came up a few times when we've done this panel. And you've kind of even talked about, you know, kind of dealing with amongst, you know, the Latino community, kind of anti-blackness. How do we get to that place where we have that solidarity, and it's not, you know, kind of like, oh, I can pass, therefore I'm going to go ahead and do my thing, and y'all are on your own?
Right after the election, I met with this Native American medicine woman, and she was telling us, as I was experiencing it for the first time, she was saying, like, you're so lucky because we're lucky to have Donald Trump, not because it's a good person or good for us, but because the enemy is clear and there's no doubting it. And I think that I've taken that to mean that this is a moment of opportunity. Just when there are challenges, that I believe that those are moments of learning something new that I have never learned before. And I think that that's where we are when it comes to like black and brown people. I think that in this moment, because we have no choice but to stand in solidarity, because we are being locked up just the same, we are being killed just the same, and deported just the same, that this is an opportunity to be able to talk about the hurt that we have caused each other in the years that we've occupied spaces together. The fact that, like, my mom has anti-black tendencies and has said like really awful things about black people in my presence. The fact that I have heard like black people say bad things about immigrants and about my mother in the same light. And that this is a moment for reconciliation because we have no choice. This is a moment of ensuring that I'm doing my work of like internally myself getting rid of like this like self-preservation instinct that everyone has. Like, let's be real. Everybody doesn't want to be in the line of target. If you had a choice, you would say, I don't want to deal with any of this. I want an easy life. I want to live in peace. I want to just be. And that's human. But I think that this moment also calls for people to take radical, bold moves to like love yourself, because when you love yourself, you can then face yourself when you say, I don't like that part of myself about myself that's racist. I don't like that part of myself that is prejudiced about people. I don't like that part of myself that is homophobic and that is like misogynistic, which is, I think, one of the biggest ailments that we have. And so I think that when I think about this moment, I think about United We Dream's work and like having anti-racism trainings to talk about colorism, even within like Latino community, and where like brown, like the browner you are, the less you are, and the lighter you are, like the better you are. And I think that this is a moment of reconciliation. This is a spiritual moment, a moment of ensuring that we are connected with like what is grounding us, which is like this deep belief, this deep faith that our lives were not meant to be like this. We were meant to be, we are kings and queens that deserve to live in peace, that deserve to dance and eat tons of food and just party all the time. That is our future. That is what we deserve. That is where we come from. And in this this moment is about like realizing that we're not there. That you may have been targeted by Cubans and people that might look like me, and that is real, and that no one can take that away from you. But that this is a moment of opportunity, and that all of that is like all of us have some internal work to do.
Powerful, powerful. And I think you see, yes, give it up. I think you also see some of that solidarity around Puerto Rico and, you know, this administration's inaction to help the people of Puerto Rico, and you'd have, you know, black or brown folks coming together really in solidarity around Puerto Rico. Do we have one more question? Any students that have a question? Not to put none of y'all on the spot, but yes. All right. I'll pass you the mic.
So most of you have talked about how it's helpful for us that the enemy is so clear, but at the same time, isn't it that we want to foster a culture where they're like afraid to say the things that they're saying? How do we balance that dichotomy?
I mean, I think we had that, right, at one point, to a degree. We had that. I think this is, to your point, an opportunity. It's the next level. And most of us we got a little, not some of us, got a little comfortable, and it was like the pus coming out, you know, and now here it is. It's out, and we have to deal with it. We got to clean it up. I don't think it helps us, though, for it to be silent, because how it shows up is in you not being able to get a job because you wear hijab. That is still there. It's just that they're not on TV broadcasting it, but my son having 2 earrings in his ear will probably harm him when he goes to Microsoft to apply for a job. How it shows up is the corporations that you love are still invested in private prisons, which perpetuates mass incarceration and police brutality. So it might not be something that people were saying because they learned that to say it is to be too clear and to have people's eyes open. So not to say it is to keep their heads down and make them feel more comfortable. Because the truth is, your friends, the people you hang out with, they saying crazy stuff too. And when you turn your back, they're talking about you. Those are not the friends you want. You want to know that you're not really my friend. Because if we get in a fight together, I need to know that you don't want to touch my skin because I'm black. I need to know that, because then I can't trust you. And unfortunately, this is just sort of where we are. It's like a golden egg. It's sitting there and it's making us all have to have conversations. It's making people say, I really didn't care about Puerto Rico as a black person because the last encounter that I had with a Puerto Rican was as if we were not in the same world. And I didn't care. But when I see the images of people dying and people not eating, my humanity sparks up. So our humanity is being called into question right now, and that's what just makes me feel good. You know, I feel like we're about to do something. We're about to do something because we don't have another choice. Either we fight or we die. That's where we are.
Excellent, excellent. Was there another question? You had a question?
Hello. This is a question addressing the Women's March and discussing rallies. So one of the major criticisms was the role that white women played within the march, and especially they're treating it as a social event more so than necessarily something that was an active issue for them, but more of a threat that they were going to monetize and sort of prioritize as a way to show their social standing. How do you think that white people and white allies need to work harder to avoid that? And how do you think the communities of color need to confront that within these rallies without losing the privilege and the power that comes with having white allies, if that makes sense?
Thank you for asking that question. I'm going to be really brief on this because this is not the Women's March panel, and there's so much to be said about that. I just want to say that to everybody in this room, be really, really careful about what you read. The only thing I agree with Donald Trump on ever is the fake news. And the reason why I say that is because I sat across the table with some white women that were real clear that shit was serious. They weren't there because they were like, oh, you know, I just need my abortion and I don't really care about other people's issues. They were like, yo, I have been ignoring racism. And in fact, I've been participating in this system in a way that hurts other people who are my friends. I'm married to a black man and didn't understand his issues. I just thought if we lived in a certain zip code, I could somehow protect him. And right now, I'm afraid that he might die. Those are the conversations that I had with the majority of people. The problem is how to actually act on that is not something that comes easy to people who've never had to fight for anything. So therefore, it shows up like you saying stupid stuff when people ask you a question like, well, yeah, we're down here rallying today, and my pink pussy hat is the example of how I'm really in this. And people who are black trans women are like, that pink pussy hat actually hurts me. So what we had to understand from a women's march perspective, and what people across the country, what I say, is that there's always going to be historic moments. The march was amazing. 5 million people worldwide. But the real work is in the small rooms like this one right here. That's where we actually build, where you have people of a diverse group of people who come together to say, okay, how do we actually start the work? Where do I begin? When we finished the day of the march, after it was over, we announced 10 weeks of actions that people could take. And we started off with stuff that was sort of fluff for black folks. They were like, what is that? Just sit down in the house with your family members and have conversations. That was like how basic where we had to go. But for those of us who understand that right now it's going to take patience, compassion, and a couple other skills that we don't necessarily have time for, but we have to have it because we know there are people who really want to do this work. That is what we are invested in, and it's not easy. It's not easy. You have to come to it saying, I don't know, or I have issues, or I know I'm racist, or I have biases that are challenging for me, and I need to be uncomfortable. And that's really what the Women's March after work is about. So October 27th until the 29th, we have the Women's Convention happening in Detroit, Michigan, where we got about 3,000 people right now. Hopefully about 5,000 people will show up, and that is the work that we're going to be doing, training and really having deep and uncomfortable conversations.
Excellent. And I would just say, too, for white allies, you have to be willing to put your privilege at risk. It can't be, I did a Facebook post, or I shared something on Instagram, or, hey, I just want to let you know I'm with you guys. You have to be willing to be as vocal and as bold as these racists are. And if you're not willing to put yourself at some point of risk, then it's not really allyship, because we walk around at risk just being black and brown folks. You're at this university, you're at risk. People are questioning why you're here. How did you get here? Is this some type of affirmative action thing? Do you even go here? Security approaching you, are you supposed, let me see your student ID. So just waking up and walking out of the dorm room, oftentimes as people of color, we're at risk. And so to me, that's what allies have. If you're going to be an ally, I need to see you willing to put your privilege at some type of risk. And that way, that we could really, really begin to build. But this passive kind of, I'm with y'all, but I'm going to be over here, that's not allyship. That's like cheerleading, what I'm saying? And we really don't need that at this point. We need folks to be willing to get involved. Yeah, okay, we got some more questions. Is it okay that we take some more questions? Okay, I saw two. Could we ask two questions? Okay, I'll take yours and yours.
We always talk about how there's a white privilege, but there's a privilege that comes with lightness and blackness. So I just was curious about how to approach that in using my privilege as a light skin or biracial student, and how can I help my darker counterparts? Because I think we always talk about the things that white people can do, but there's so much that I can do with just me being light.
I take this question? No, I'm just playing. Go ahead. No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I will say that it's something that, something that I'm struggling with myself as a light-skinned Latina. And I think it a little bit goes to what Jasir was just saying now, which is I can take different risks than other people can, and knowing that is my role. And so my role now is to be out and say I'm undocumented and unafraid, but it's easier for me than for people that are darker. And so just realizing that, and then the other piece I will say is that that just the question, like just that question says so much about where you are, and like to be, and you are, and people need to be like, no one will be able to have a specific answer for you. Like you will have to be able to find that for yourself. But knowing that like you need to continue to dig into that, and then in the flip side, when you think about when white people are trying to help, I think one lesson that I've learned in the last couple of months is to let them. Because for me, my pride and like saying like, oh, black and brown people, we're powerful, we don't need white people, blah, blah, blah. It's not strategic to not be able to do that. And so it's a struggle for sure. But
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, in a white supremacist society, the closer you are to white, the more accepted you are, the more non-threatening you appear to be. And so I think that, to me, even as a man, and I'll take it there. Like, yeah, I do hip hop, and so it's important to me now. If I have a platform, that I bring other people on the platform that I have. So this is one of the reasons we started. I'm part of an arts collective called One Hood, that I'm one of the founders of, and so it wasn't good enough for me. I was blessed to be able to travel around the country and be a hip hop artist, but I come back to a city, Pittsburgh, where we have the poorest black community in the country. So it's important for me now when I'm going, we're about to do a hip-hop summit in Penn State. We're taking a group of our students with us. We make sure that, right now, probably the majority of our women are women in our artist collective. The 2 videos we're about to put out, most recently, actually, one is coming tomorrow and another's coming October 31st, are from women MCs. You see what I'm saying? So to me, that's the importance. Is like, if you're going to let me in the door, because I'm light-skinned and you think, oh, this light, he's non-threatening, he has curly hair, I have to make sure that I keep that door open. And it's like, nah, it's not. I'm not just coming in for myself. It's not just going to be about me benefiting. I'm going to make sure the whole of my human family benefit as well. And so I think just making sure that we are intentional about it. Yes. Last question.
So on this campus, because it's primarily white, it's easy to be passive. Like when talking about racial issues, like whether you're black, brown, white, it's just easier for people to be passive. So my question is kind of, how do you foster those uncomfortable conversations and actually have like a real discussion about race? Because it's easy to see that it happens, like racial issues happen a lot.
You want to start that, Yusuf? Put you on
how
the
do you
spot now.
how do you foster the conversation? It's weird because I got so much stuff going on in my head right now, because I'm thinking about when I was growing up and how it was unpopular to be a dark guy. And not only was I a dark guy, but I was about 6'1" since I was 12. So I was real lanky and trying to figure it out. And you don't play basketball, I'm an artist. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wanted to be a hip-hop dude and all of that, But I think that the day that we're living in today is what we're talking about now in terms of all of this. We have to be able to we have to know that tomorrow, you and everyone else in this room who's a student are going to be the movers and shakers of tomorrow. So like in my day and age, there were other people and other power structures that hold the strings to figure out whether they were going to give us justice or not. But tomorrow, you are going to be the ones that are going to be holding the strings. And hopefully, these types of interactions are going to push you in the right direction to say, hold on, something, especially with the Central Park Jogger case, because they said never again with the Scottsboro Boys, but we became the modern-day Scottsboro Boys. They tried to do to us what they did to Emmett Till. And we just found out yesterday that the accuser says she made the whole story up. But yet that young man lost his life just because they said he whistled at a woman. The reality is that these types of things aren't yesterday. They're happening today. They're going to happen tomorrow. And we have to have these conversations. We have to open up the floor. We have to be able to be boldly realize that we one of the great teachers, Angela Davis, said that we as a people have historical amnesia. And I think what she was getting at was the fact that we don't constantly bring these things back into the fray so that we can learn from it today. And this is the stuff that we need to do. So we need to physically position ourselves in that reality of knowing that tomorrow is the rest of my life. Tomorrow is when everything counts. But today is where we begin. We have to, like, that type of direction has to be there. Not, you know, I'm just going to keep on chilling and figure it out. No. Be assertive about it. You know, and the other thing too is in terms of the whole conversation about being able to call it what it is. You know, Auntie Maxine was saying on the news, Maxine Waters, you know, she was saying some very powerful stuff. Like, we can't allow other folks to dictate and say this is what this is. We have to define that. We have to continue to define that. And if they say, no, it's raining, nah, man, you trying to pee on me. Yeah. We got to be, like, for real about that. You know what I'm saying? And keep on moving. And the crazy part, and I just want to address this thing too, because I feel like it's on my heart. You know, I have 10 children. The family is a blended family. The 2 eldest children are boys. And then there's my daughter, my 2 daughters from my ex-wife, and then my current wife's daughter, and then my last daughter from my ex-wife, and then 3 more girls.
You got like the new Brady Bunch, brother, is that?
Listen. Yes, indeed. And it's like, it's so crazy because my last child that was born to me was born on my birthday, 2016, and it was a boy. And so the pain that you talk about, I didn't necessarily have to deal with because my wife's children were older. You know what I'm saying? Like, they already, you know, they already were living a bit. But now I have this precious life that I have to guide into a reality that could be scary because he's still going to be a man. You know what I'm saying? And he's a black man. He's going to be seen as that. He can never put that weapon down, which is called the color of his skin. Sure. You know, and I think it's so important because the fear, that fear is real. Knowing that you know, your son could walk out of the house tonight and you will never see him again. I mean, women there's a reality that goes on with black women and brown women as well. You know, especially when you talk about like sex trafficking and all of that other stuff, you know. But this thing about the fact that in the DNA of us as a people, there's greatness. And there's always a desire to keep and push that down, to not let you know who you actually are, what your greatness really is. Because once we realize that, and this is the reason why I talked about being assertive about it, once we realize that we are the future Michelle Obamas, we are the future Angela Davises, we are the modern day Angela Rye's, Tamika Mallory's, you know what I'm saying? I mean, this is such a powerful thing that the pivot is all we got to do is stand up. All we got to do is stand up. I just created a t-shirt. Well, not a t-shirt. I just created a logo for a t-shirt. And the logo simply just says, I am. And you are. Whatever you say you are. And it got to be like that.
Wow.
Can I just say some more practical thing for the organizing on your campus is that you should find 5 or 10 people and put them in a room and share your stories about what does it mean to be a student, what does it mean to be in this campus, what does it mean to be a person of color, and then come to that conversation with curiosity about what are the things that come up. Because when I did that in my college campus, when I felt alone and I felt scared and I felt invisible, was that what I just felt like my most powerful when I was able to actually say who I was, which was documented. So as you all leave this place, I think the charge that you're taking is not, maybe you're getting extra credit for being here, and it was really cool because we're like 15 minutes afterwards, but just you should know that like that our people are counting on you to tell your stories and get into that room. Our life depends on you being able to do that, and that you are more than capable of sharing your story and changing the world. There is no doubt in my mind. Just do it.
All right. So thank you.
And I get the mic back. Thank you so much. Many of these students are actually our students in African American and Diaspora Studies. And so they know that in class we do a lot of time travel. So we complicate, white supremacy, we complicate Thomas Jefferson, we complicate all of that. We time travel and make these connections all the time, right? So, and we'll continue doing that this semester. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us, and thank you all so much for attending, and be safe over the weekend. Thank you.